And I'm working on my project. I've come to the end, so I need to add in the new yarn. So I am going to yarn over, insert the hook, grab the new yarn, and add it to the old. So using both the new yarn and the tail of the old yarn, I will pull up both yarns through that loop. Then drop the old yarn and have that tail hanging there in the back. And then to complete the stitch, you want to grab both yarns of the new yarn, so the tail and your working yarn, and you will use both strands to pull through. Now it's actually 3 strands of yarn because of the extra of the yarn that we've added in, but it's only 2 loops for the stitch. So now we need to separate the yarns, and I'm getting the new out of the way and pull the old tail to the front. And you'll just maneuver that between and get it to the front. So now the new tail is in the back and the old tail is in the front. You want to pick up your working yarn and complete the stitch. And so from here, what we want to do is to take the new tail and also pull it to the front, and you're pulling it between, so you can see where it comes from the bottom portion of the stitch up to the top and is now in front. Your old tail is also in the front. So using the working yarn, we will make our next double, working around that old tail. So you just add it into the top of that stitch. So you just work it as though it is part of that stitch, pull through 2, and now to get that yarn from the bottom portion of the stitch to the top, we're going to move it to the back at the middle of the stitch. And then we will complete that double. And you can see where the new tail is already at the top portion of the stitch we just completed. So you'll move it to the back and take the old tail and move it to the front because they are both at the top of the stitch. And we will do that again. You complete your next double, take the old, move it to the back. Now you can keep doing this, moving them back and forth through the tops of the stitches. But I like for mine to be a little more secure, so I will also move it between in the middle of stitches. So I'm going to continue with the old tail, moving it back and forth, but the new tail, I'm going to put it in the back and leave it there for right now. So working the first portion of the next double, I'm going to take this old tail and drop it through the middle of the stitch. It just gives it a little more security, and that way there's more involvement in the stitches rather than just moving back and forth through the stitches. So I have moved it through the middle of the stitch and it's now in the back. Completing the double, I'm going to pull that tail forward again. and then just make the next stitch. Now I don't drop it through the middle every single time. I just do it every now and again. There's no set rule. Now, if you're using all the same color, you wouldn't notice these extra loops that you're seeing. And so I'm going to just continue moving the tail back and forth from the front to the back and then back to the front again. I'm going to work this last double and make that chain 3 to count as our first stitch. And here we have both tails that are now in the front. And so we're going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to scoot the tail over and include that in the first stitch. And now what I need to do is to move it up through to the top of the stitch. So pulling it through the middle after half of the first double, and then pulling it back to the front, and we have it back to the top of the stitches again. And you just do the same thing. You can pull it through the middle every few stitches, whatever you choose to do. Move it back and forth through the tops of the stitches. I'm going to go ahead and complete this last stitch, and now we have come to that tail of the pink yarn, the new yarn. Remember, we had dropped it when we were working on the other side, so we're going to pick that back up again. We are going to move it to the top of the stitch, so working it over at half stitch and then pulling it back through to the front at the top of the stitch. Now this old tail, again, I'm going to just leave it hanging here, and when I come across on the next row, I'll pick it back up again in the same way that I just picked up this pink tail. So leaving the gray in the back, I'm going to continue across the row, and I'm actually going to scoot close because I want you to see this strand right here. This is that extra yarn from moving the yarn back and forth through the tops of the stitches. But what I'll do is work under it and include it as part of this stitch. So not only are you weaving it back and forth through the tops of the stitches, you are now crocheting over that tail as well. So it really is a very secure way of weaving in your ends without having to actually sew them in. I'm going to finish this stitch. Pull out some yarn here, sorry. And I actually want to go ahead, let me move this to the back. I want to make one more stitch so I can show you this little piece of yarn here. This is from when we initially moved it around to the back. So you just scoop it up and work into it as well as the top of your next stitch. Okay, and so let's take a closer look at the last few pink stitches that we've made. So you can see that as we're moving it back and forth, when it's all in one color, you really can't see that it's there. So here where we've used the two colors, you can see where it's going in and out and back and forth. And here when I've moved it from the first row up through to the second row, you can see that. But again, when it's all in one color, it's just really not noticeable. And then when you come across with your stitches for the next row and you work over it, it hides it even more. So this is a new way for you on how to weave in your ends as you work. You can use this technique on your foundation chain and on any of the interior stitches. The only end that you will have to sew down with a needle is that fasten off end. So if you're using all of one color, you can stitch them